And welcome, everybody. This is episode 8 of Unleash the Cragle, or actually it might be 9. Well, you'll see with whatever it says. That's the episode it is. Today I have a special guest. I actually had a kind of a change on the fly. Unknown and unknowable is what I always live off of, it seems like. So we actually have a special secret guest who originally was going to be the couple I mentioned in the previous podcast, but had a little change of schedule for them, so we'll move them later in the month. Today I have a special guest and friend, and really hardcore CrossFitter, my good friend Jason Marlowe. Jason and I have known each other, well, let's just get into the podcast and we'll talk about it. Welcome, Jason. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so we just got done with the Saturday free class at CrossFit. I love it. And we were just actually talking off before we started the podcast that our coach, Mitchel Stevenson, sold us as doing cardio. Do you remember what the workout was?
Yeah, it was undersold as a cardio event. 20 minutes of max assault bike cals, but then he snuck in some man makers and some step back lunges, kind of waterfall style workout where there actually is no rest. So
Yep.
Yeah, we got the heart rate up today, which is good.
Yeah, and I actually was partnered with you in D3, Darren Spence, and I knew when we had a team that I was going to get absolutely no rest, and you guys might get a little extra based on how my man makers went. So yeah, it was good. I think the last two, we actually did a workout last night, and I wasn't sure I was going to wake up today, but thank God I did, and I was able to come in and move. But man, that was another back-to-back hardcore workout. So yeah, you were kind of last minute. I actually asked you at class last night if you would be on, and lo and behold, our scheduled workout, and so we have a few minutes we can chat. And same thing, I'm going to probably do this in 2 parts, allow it to be like 20 minutes each. So we'll talk a little bit about Jason, life, his life, changes in life, and also kind of CrossFit and so forth. So with all that lead in, how did you find CrossFit, or how did CrossFit find you? We were talking a little bit about this, but tell listeners.
CrossFit found me in the form of Mitchel Stevenson. Never heard of it. He went to college down in Oregon, and he had moved back up here to come home. And I went through some recent life changes, and he come knocking on my door one day and asked me if I wanted to come watch him work out. And I didn't exactly know what that meant. I always known him as a soccer player. We show up at a warehouse behind a restaurant, and lo and behold, there's about 100 people in a circle, and there's some gymnastic bars, things like that, some weights, and I watch him do these superhuman things for about 8 minutes, and then we leave, and he brings me home. A couple months later, he asked me if I wanted to come to the free class on Saturday morning, and 7 years later, here I am back at the free class, still going at it.
Still going at it. Yeah, it's funny. And for those, obviously, many people listening are going to know Mitch Stevenson, CrossFit Games athlete, has semifinals, just all around fit young man. We'll have him trying to work out schedules to get him on the podcast also, but a lot of tie-ins to Mitch. Jason and I were chatting a little bit. I've known Mitch since he was a very young youth. My boys and his cousins grew up together, and so I've watched him kind of grow from a young boy into a man and now a husband. And yet the one thing that's been consistent is the engine that young man has, and it just continues to stay at that level. So you saw CrossFit done. Do you remember when your first class was? Approximately.
Yeah, we had CrossFit I Love It here does intro camp, and that was the way that you had to kind of buy your way into getting into the normal everyday classes is come to intro camp for 2 weeks, right? And they got to kind of, see your level of fitness and mobility and all of that. So, my first day was, I believe it was November 7th, about 7 years ago. And, I kind of underestimated the commitment of CrossFit, right? I mean, if you are really buying in, right? And so I kind of came with a very casual approach, and I didn't show up for the first intro camp day, and then I just randomly showed up for the second one, about 2 or 3 minutes late, and that didn't go over too well, right?
Set a sort of wrong tone.
Yeah. I didn't go well right off the bat. So, we've got the amazing owners of Matt and Kaylee here, and so they kind of pulled me aside and said, "Hey, let's back out of this intro camp and let's get into the next one." And so they kind of sat me down and talked me through, kind of what the value is and, the buy-in. And so, that was kind of a harsh reality. It took me a couple months before I decided to, be courageous enough to come back, right? I was a little intimidated by that. And then I did come back, and, thank goodness I did, right? But it was pretty intimidating at first.
Sure.
Right.
Oh, I think that's the beauty. I've had the tough love with approach from in a very good way. Doesn't feel good at the moment.
Yep.
Like anything. You could be a 50-year-old person, and yet you could feel like a kid because the person's right, but it doesn't feel good to kind of be called out on something, and the call out, and in my case, I remember very distinctly, it was a workout, and I just gave up. I just stopped. And it was like, again, it's not a matter of how many reps you do. It's just the idea that you're just going to decide you're going to stop, just is never a good thing. You move until unless you're physically unable to, or there's something wrong. But if it's just, I'm done, I'm going to quit. There's that tougher love approach that I got, certainly from Kaylee. And at the moment, I was not happy. I was ready to walk away. But in retrospect, and when I had a chance, it was the best thing to happen because it really makes you serious about that commitment, not just to CrossFit, but really to yourself.
Yeah, I reached a point in life where, I use the term give up, right?
Yeah.
I had reached a point in life where I'd given up.
Yeah.
From, where I'd been at previously in my athletic endeavors through life, through college, to going through some major changes in my personal life.
Yeah.
To just honestly just letting myself go, emotionally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah.
And I just kind of got to a point where I'd given up, right?
Yeah.
And, I tell Mitch and I tell Matt and Kaylee, may kind of be a bold statement, but in a way they saved my life, right? Because I had given up and I didn't know how to pick myself up at that point. And it was just a knock on the door and, hey, let's go to the gym.
Yeah.
And that put things in motion from there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since you and I think that's where you and I connect well. We've had we've gone through divorce.
Yep.
We've there's been, suffering from that. And nobody, regardless of what, the situation, nobody comes out, intact in the, nobody comes out unscarred, maybe is a better way to say it. And I actually agree with you. The same exact thing when I actually, came here at the, I Love It, grand opening Matt had back in 2013. And it was actually my son who led me because he needed a place to live for his football, college football stuff. And I wasn't sure. I did a month. It was like $25 for the month. And yet I made the commitment, and it's, I tell them, it saved my life because I was in a bad way health-wise. Emotionally, I was, pretty spent after so many years of struggling, co-parenting, but just, awful life stuff. And you get to that stage where you get beat up, and you're like, at some point, it's not what you want to give up. You're just like, you're spent. And yet CrossFit gave me that kick, like I hear from you. It gave me that kick, that not kicking the pants, but that idea of reinvigorating the idea of moving. And that movement is life. And that movement then gives us not just emotional or not physical, but it gives us that confidence back. That athlete that maybe left a long time ago has come back. Now, not nearly as athletic as I used to be, but I'm athletic in a lot of ways more than I used to be. But more than anything, my person is who I'm supposed to be. And that's, I hear you the same way. And I've watched you since we've known each other, come into your own and come into who you were made to be.
From being a, former high school and college athlete, you're kind of looking for, something to fill that competitive urge. And, CrossFit, in some regard does that for me.
Sure.
I think everybody has those people that, they either, hey, I'm gonna work out next to this person today. They have no idea why I'm setting up right next to them, right? But I think this is a workout that I believe is in my wheelhouse, and I know it's in there. So we're pretty evenly matched up, I believe. So I'm gonna try and keep up, right? Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't work out.
Sometimes the wheels fall off quick.
You get buried by that individual. But I have loved every minute of it, and it just kind of satisfies that competitiveness inside of me.
So you actually mentioned, and I'll be honest, in the time I've known you, I didn't realize. So what did you, college athlete? What were you?
I was a wrestler.
Wrestler. I should have guessed you were either a wrestler or a pickleball player.
Inspiring pickleball player at this point.
No, actually, and those who know Jason, you look at him in the way he walks like all the kids I grew up with that are wrestlers in Iowa. He walks like somebody who is ready to take you down, but, great heart. So, and where did you wrestle?
I wrestled at, in high school, I wrestled at Ferndale High School.
Okay.
Tremendous wrestling program there. We had a coach by the name of Lee Anderson. He was a huge father figure to me in life. I owe him a lot. He taught me things outside of just wrestling, right? Taught me life.
Yeah.
One of the things I remember about him was we would be getting ready for one of the biggest matches of the year against crosstown rival, and the night before he's given us the hoorah speech and all that, and then he would say, "Hey, make sure you go home and love on your mom, take the garbage out, and make sure that you take care of everything at home first, because that's what matters in life, right?"
Sure.
He said, "We get to wrestle for fun."
Yeah.
And so a lot of life lessons taught there.
Cool.
I ended up going down and wrestling in Seattle and in Portland, and made it all the way to the U.S. Nationals in Nebraska one year. So
very cool.
Pretty fun. I learned a lot about that. And wrestling gave me opportunities that I otherwise probably wouldn't have had in life. And one of the greatest things that I got out of wrestling was, and it was also one of the hardest things, was when you decide to stop competitively wrestling, is how do you keep that fire burning? And once again, my old coach, Mr. Anderson, he brought me onto the coaching staff. And next thing you know, 20 years later of high school coaching, what a outstanding honor it was to coach so many young men over those years and just be able to kind of pay it forward, right?
Yeah.
Everything that I had been taught and learned, be able to pass down and just, help these young athletes grow into young men that are, high performers, but also, contributing to society.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And again, I grew up in Iowa, so I was a basketball player, but our first few weeks of practice for basketball, our coach sent us down and we actually did all conditioning with the wrestlers. And that's why we were always a run and gun team, that we would, little school about the size of, probably Meridian for people that know local. I think we had 70 kids in my graduating class, but we ran and played run and gun against two classes above us. And I think we were one of the only schools that scored 100 points in a high school game 5 times. And so but it was because we went down and suffered with the wrestlers and learned a lot about body movement in that case. So I've always had, I don't want to be a wrestler because, they really suffer. But I have incredible respect, and quite a few of my friends growing up, I stay in contact with still. A lot of who they are is tied into more the wrestling than it is any of the other sports they played because of what happened and kind of their process with that. That's really wild. That's just, and again, here I am, this podcast, I'm learning new info. So what's the hardest CrossFit workout you can recall, just off the top of my head? Is there one that sticks out that you just go, wow, that's one that sticks in my memory that I'll do, but that one really hurt?
It's actually, and I don't, I don't know the name of it or whatever, or if there even is a name for it, but it took place Saturday at Open Gym, and once again, this involves Mitch. They were in the midst of training for a competition, and they needed some cardio, right? And of course, pull out the assault bikes, and this was about a 1 hour assault bike workout. Hard, fast, little to no rest built into it, and just cycling through and hammering down on the assault bike for about an hour. It was like 45 seconds max cals, 15-second rest. So no time to get off the bike. And I thought my heart was going to beat right outside of my chest. I got off, and I don't know who it was in the CrossFit world, but it's something I try to pride myself in, but every once in a while it just happens, right? It said, hey, when you get done with a workout, don't allow yourself to just collapse on the floor and just lay there in misery.
That's a Rich Froning, I think,
get
statement.
Up, walk it off, right? And of course, here at CrossFit, I love it. They always encourage us, take a 100-meter walk down and back, right? And by the time you get back, normally your heart rate is, back within, control. Your breathing's back down, and but after that workout on the assault bike, I was literally so exhausted, my legs couldn't hold me up, and I just laid there on the ground. It's just like, okay, got me.
Yeah. Well, I could answer the question since you're sitting in front of me. I remember Fight Gone Bad back about 2016 being one of the worst, probably because I wasn't great at all the movements, but also they're the same thing. You just didn't get rest. It was moved from one station to the next for 3 rounds, and I think we were doing 3 rounds, the original or the full Fight Going Bad's 5 rounds. But I would also say any workout I do with you as a partner is the best, but it's also the worst. So, and for those that are listening, we did actually, when I referred to last night, we did the Lahaina
Yep, Maui Strong workout.
Maui Strong workout we did as a gym all day yesterday, and so Jason and I partnered up, and I always felt I was thinking to myself as we're doing this, 200-meter run with a med ball, one partner, and you alternate movements. Then they tag off and you do 8. We did knee ups, but you toes to bar. Then you tag off. Partner 1 does 8 power cleans. We went beefy 135 RX because we're strong, silverbacks. And then tag off, and partner 2 does 23 air squats, and then tag off, and partner 1 does 13 lateral burpees over the barbell. Tag off, and now partner 2 starts in, and you do that for 8 rounds. And I just remember about round 2 for me, round 4 for us, the lactic acid in my legs started building up, and I kept thinking, he's getting a lot more rest during my runs than I am during his runs. And so you talk about wanting to get up and walk around. I actually had to have one of our other members, Greg Blankers, pull my knee sleeves off because I literally couldn't move. That one hurt. That one genuinely. So I would say every workout with you is fantastic, but it also, I know I'm going to suffer in the process, and yet I'm better for it. I'm good all around. That's awesome. Let me look here real quick. Okay. So we talked about your process coming into CrossFit. If I gave you 30 seconds to convince somebody or talk to somebody about why they should go to CrossFit, I'll go 3, 2, 1, go. You got 30 seconds.
Community. I mean, my experience, obviously, I'm a CrossFit, I love it, member here, but I have had the privilege through work. It's given me opportunities to drop into CrossFit gyms all over the place, and the community involvement, the friendships that you make, is amazing. It's life changing. Like I mentioned earlier, CrossFit has saved my life, right? And it's not just the workouts, right? It's also the people, the friendships that you make, right? I mean, these people are family, right? And just that bond, right? I always kind of look at it as faith, family, and fitness, right? And it's all kind of wrapped into one, right? And I get all of that from, being involved here in CrossFit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will just kind of tie off of this or with you. I've in 10 plus years of being here, I've had other groups. I would say church and CrossFit are the two most, I would say in that order, are the two most critical parts of my life, the most influential. And in both cases, I've experienced life, I've experienced death, I've experienced loss, I've experienced gain or success. And through that all, the 2 places that I go to first is church and CrossFit. And CrossFit, I love it. And certainly, this community, when I'd already been through my divorce, but it was where I was at that kind of halfway stage part of 9 years removed from it, that things are kind of like falling apart again, and I found CrossFit. Marriages of my children and births of grandchildren, but death of a son recently. First place besides church that I came to was Matt and Kaylee said, hey, I'm going to come back, and experience here in the community. And it's not people want to, are here to talk to you or whatever. You're just here to move. And that movement and that inclusion, and I say inclusion, but that just community, that family aspect of, hey, we're here for you, whatever you need. And if that just is you move, we're here. And absolutely, I completely agree that it will be somewhere where if I ever move away, I'll make regular visits back to here specifically because it's like coming back to see family. And so for me, it's that tie that, I don't know if I'll leave when I retire, but if I do, absolutely. The reason it would draw me back here is this community, this group of people, the family that I have here that aren't blood related, but are as close to blood related as possible. So yeah, that's very. So you mentioned a couple gyms. Any one or two gyms you think about that you visited that you thought, hey, that's an awesome gym, you should go see it. For those that are listening,
I've got I call her a friend, and CrossFit Pillars. I believe it's in Moses Lake.
okay,
Valerie, her and her husband run a CrossFit gym over there. For work, I had to kind of work remotely out in the middle of Quincy, and I'd drive back into her gym after she had a late class, and she's a phenomenal individual.
very cool,
just great.
And I'll find out the gym and I'll tag it in the show notes.
Yeah. Her and I, honestly, I value her as a friend. We've only met a couple times in life, right? But we've, that's the great thing about CrossFit, right? You make connections and they just stick, right? Yeah. And we mostly just kind of I follow her gym on Instagram, and another gym that was amazing is CrossFit Katy in Katy, Texas. Wow, the community that's there, the people. I've gone there for work, and I drop in there. Just a fantastic place. Their community reminds me so much of ours here, and I love it. So those are probably two of my favorites that I've dropped in at.
Very cool. Yeah, I've hit gyms. A couple of them are CrossFit SCM. The owners end up selling and moving, but SCM in Felton, California was real meaningful. Community aspect, very welcoming to me as a person kind of coming from the outside. I'm trying to think of the others. There are plenty of meaningful places. I think that's the beauty of it is. The community aspect of CrossFit gyms is what really is the selling point. And if you're an owner, that's what you want to be looking at and driving, because that's what's going to sustain your business through everything.
Yeah,
and so forth.
That gym was CrossFit 4 Pillars.
4 Pillars.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll tag it in the show notes so you can certainly check it out, and definitely go check that out also. So we've talked a little bit about how CrossFit's helped you in kind of life's ups and downs. What keeps you coming back to CrossFit? I love it. We talked community. Is it just community, or what other things? We haven't actually talked. We're going to talk in a little bit here about personal stuff and that. But you got grandkids. Is it grandkids? Is it your life? Is it your health? What gets you back here? What makes you? It's all of that.
It's besides the the obvious, the physical, the health aspect of it, right? Like I mentioned earlier, there's a competitive urge, right? I get that satisfied here through that, but it's
And that concludes part 1 of a 2-part interview I did with Jason Marlowe. I wanted to give you a chance to be able to have a break, doing about a 30-minute episode, and you'll have to wait. Next week, we will drop part 2 of the interview, and I know you're going to want to return to listen to more about Jason and CrossFit, his life, what he does for work, what inspires him with work, and more about his family, his new marriage with Karen, and all the fantastic things that just make him the man and person and husband that he is. So return back next week. We'll be dropping it. If you aren't following already, follow us on Instagram. You can also follow us on YouTube, and you can email us. All of the links are down in the show notes. Again, come on back next week and check out part 2 of my interview with Jason Marlowe. Thank you again, Jason, and look forward to seeing you all and being with you on the next episode. This is Jonathan Cragle for Unleash the Cragle podcast.